Good morning, everybody. The meeting's called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I think we had our name tags. I don't think we need introductions. We'll skip that. Public comment. 0. Next, approval of minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes that were circulated. Well, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes that are circulated.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Report of the Executive Director, Ty Warner.
Thank you very much. I will make this short and sweet. I mentioned the Ignite the Region effort that the Northwest Indiana Forum commissioned, but a whole bunch of folks are involved, including us, in trying to advance the region forward on economic development goals. And just wanted to say that is, once that plan was launched, we are out of the gate with implementation. There was an implementation meeting held right in this room on next steps specifically out of that plan. Our main roles, I think I mentioned this briefly last time, but it's a bunch of acronyms really. It can be summarized by the EDD, TOD, and GIS. That's really it. So Economic Development District, Transit-Oriented Development, and Geographic Information Systems for Brownfields, which is all stuff that we're doing already, but this syncs everything with efforts going on in the rest of the region for economic development. So they have a really good video that they produce. It's only a little over a minute, so I thought it'd be great to show. Thank you, Trey, for pulling that up. And here it is.
Northwest Indiana. Some call me the region, others call me the South Shore. But I feel like I'm in the middle of everywhere. You crossed my roads, called me the crossroads. But when you cross my roads, prepare to change your direction. Stay a while. I have a story to tell. I am urban, suburban, and rural. Steel-built, hell-bent, dirt on my jeans and perseverance in my genes. Heritage. I am schools and churches and farms and breweries and lakefronts and family dinners and Friday night winners and children and dogs. I am for better place. I am for better jobs. I am for my neighbor in 7 counties of over 2 million beautiful acres. And I have a plan for tomorrow. And my plan, it doesn't work without us together. For the quality of tomorrow's life and opportunities rests in the quality of today's decision. The middle of nowhere? No. The middle of everywhere. Northwest Indiana. Ignite the region.
Thank you, Trey. Part of that whole quality of life emphasis has to do with trails and our greenways and our blueways. And last time passed out copies of the Greenways and Blueways plan. And I think we had mentioned at that time that received an award from the National Association of Regional Councils in June for a Medium Metro Achievement Award. And I'm happy to say that continues to keep getting awards and recognitions. In September, we received the Indiana NPO Award for Outstanding Planning Project for that same plan. And we also received from the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations at their conference in San Antonio an Outstanding Overall Achievement for a Transportation Management Agency NPO award. So we continue to get more, and there's a hot rumor that the Indiana Association of Regional Councils meeting is coming up where there may be a 4th for that same plan. So testament to everybody's great work, particularly Mitch Barlogan and Kathy Luther, who are project managers on that document. So congratulations on those accolades. And this will provide me with a nice segue to the chair's report, which is also at that Indiana Association of Regional Councils. Jeff Benson will be the keynote speaker at that event as president of the National Association of Regional Councils. So how's that for a good?
That's a good segue, and that's pretty much the report of the chair. That they invited me to attend and then say something and then keynote. So if you have anything you'd like me to say during my 15-minute speech, send it my way. That'd be great. It'll be fun. That's really it, I think. We attended the NARC board meeting in Cleveland, and that was very interesting and fun. Doing some good work there and adding members and trying to organize to be connected with the other national organizations, National League of Cities, NACO, AMCO, et cetera, for gearing up for the next transportation funding.
Reauthorization.
Reauthorization.
Can I slide back into your report?
Yep.
So, again, Justin Keel also serves on the NARC board. Dave Schaefer continues to be there as past president, although he couldn't be here today. And what's also nice is this is third or fourth year that this is the Executive Directors Conference. So the conference leading to the board meeting is focused for executive directors. So it's a great opportunity to meet my colleagues from around the country. And for the past 3 or 4 years, we facilitated a 2.5-hour session where all those executive directors talk about the innovations that are happening in their part of the country. And it's always a great event, and this was no exception. We learned quite a lot from hobnobbing with folks and what they're doing, and I know that happens on the board level as well. So stop there, but just to again underscore how important our involvement is with that.
That's great. That concludes my report. Next is Finance and Personnel Committee, George Topol.
Finance and Personnel Committee met this morning to review financial status and reconciliation of expenses, etc. Lisa Todd will be making a presentation on our recommendations for procurement.
Good morning. We have procurement number 18-503, which starts on page 8 of your packet. This is a request for approval to enter into a contract not to exceed $80,000. It is for the City of Hobart Conservation Zoning and Sub-Area Plan. We have a grant from the Indiana Department of Natural Resources Lake Michigan Coastal Program that will cover 50% of these funds, the other 50% local share coming from the Calumet Land Conservation Partnership. We have an RFP out on this, and selection committee has met for the responders that have replied, and we will be working on contracts which we will bring back to the committee for final approval. But this is just to let you know that we are out there, and we do not intend to exceed $80,000 on this contract. Then we have procurement 1824-.01, which is 2 vehicle replacements for the City of East Chicago. These are 35-foot buses. These buses are 45 to 50 passengers. They have a useful life of 12 years or 500,000 miles. We have grant number 2018-026, which will cover 80% of the expenses for the vehicle. The other 20% will be supplied by the City of East Chicago. We will not spend more than $646,000 in federal funds for those vehicle replacements. We have 10 vehicle replacements under procurement 19-02. These are the smaller minibus. We refer to them as body on chassis or BOCs or cutaways. 1 vehicle replacement for North Township Dial Ride. These are also out of grant 2018-26. We will not exceed more than $126,000. Let me get to the right one. $56,400 in federal funds for the North Township bus. Then we have 2 vehicles for Opportunity Enterprises. We will not exceed $126,283 in federal funds. There are 5 vehicle replacements for the City of Valparaiso for their V-Line operation. We will not exceed $452,000 in federal funds. There are 2 vehicles for South Lake County Community Services. We will not exceed $131,198 in federal funds. These vehicles are 4 years useful life, 100,000 miles. They are smaller, anywhere from 12 to 16 passenger vehicles. So the total amount of funds not to exceed is $765,881 in federal funds for those 10 vehicle replacements. Then we have another large vehicle, 1 replacement for the City of Valparaiso under 19-03. This is for their Chicago Dash bus, which is one of the large commuter buses that you would see on the road, similar to a Greyhound vehicle. They're MCI motor coaches. we will not exceed $637,500 in federal funds for this vehicle replacement. Again, that is grant 2018-026. Question?
The Finance Personnel Committee recommends approval of procurement recommendations.
Is that a motion?
Second.
No. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Thank you. That's a good report.
That concludes my report. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. The Environmental Management Policy Committee, Kathy Luther.
The Environmental Management and Policy Committee actually met twice this month. We were busy folks, but the first portion of our October 4th meeting, we spent 1 hour, and then we spent a subsequent 3 hours working through the information that Ms. Barloga will be presenting to you shortly. But in addition, we had our joint meeting with the Federal Urban Waters Partnership, where we had a team from EPA Region 5 Superfund come and talk with us about their plans to develop a Northwest Indiana sub-area contingency plan for particularly petroleum spills in our region. I think we had thought it would be all types of spills in our region, but it really focuses on petroleum. But so they will be working behind the not behind the scenes, but with all the county emergency manager folks and other technical folks on the technical aspect of the plan. We had significant input, I think, and will continue to have input on the maybe the notification and communication parts of their plan, which are we think is needed in our region. That's sort of unique as far as the so we look forward to more information on that, and as that develops, we'll keep you all informed.
Thank you. Next is the Technical Planning Committee, Kevin Brightsky.
The Technical Planning Committee met on Tuesday, October 11th. During the meeting, staff presented the results of the 2050 plan pop-up events and the revisions to the programmatic investment approach with changes made from input received from the topical committees. Staff also reported on the transit ADA inventory. Mitch Barloga will now present an update on the programmatic investment approach, and there's some information in front of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. I'm going to take a bit of time, hopefully not too much time here, to talk about where we're at in regards to our new program. I do want to give kudos to George Topol for sitting through this for like the 14th time, so thank you, George. We are working on
In
some
case you
type
go
of...
down, he can keep.
Yeah, that's you can take a break if you wish. If you have been at some of our topical committee meetings, we've had some pretty, as I would say, robust dialogue regarding our new programming process. And this is quite a bit different than the way we have done things before here at NORC. Primary basis being connecting our projects to our actual plan this time out, being the 2050 plan itself. And what I would like to do is just kind of walk with you about where we're at in this process and give you an update of where we're going. And again, what I want to make sure you understand is this is not the 2050 plan itself that I'm presenting on, it's actually the programming ahead of our next call for projects. And we're looking to get that out the door by the end of next month and have that call run into about late January. When we put out this 2050 plan, we also have to have a new TIP, or Transportation Improvement Program, alongside it. And that's a new 5-year program that we're working on, so we want to make sure that we have them both moving alongside each other towards final adoption that we're looking to do in May of next year. So we're under a bit of a time crunch, but so far so good, and we really appreciate the work of the topical committees thus far in helping us get through this. So you have a couple of handouts here. They're both quite large. Of course, I have my handout here with the presentation itself, and I'll get to this color-coded placemat in a moment. So going through what we've done here thus far, the vision and critical paths, which really represents the foundation of our entire 2050 planning process, and I'll get to that momentarily. There's actually now a
board on the wall over there that shows those. We ironed those out and we approved those at the commission level back in July. And then what we discussed last month with all of you, with all of our topical committees, and this was back in September, was the performance-based planning framework, what we're looking to do regarding our programming and how we're going to actually match our projects up with our plans. Now, as for the programs, the funding allocations themselves, figuring out what are the priority project types for this region and also the scoring of the projects as they come in individually, that's what we're in the thick of right now. Have launched that back last month. We've been through several different workshops with our topical committees this month, and we're looking to bring that to a conclusion next month. And then finally, project selection, as I mentioned to you, that is our call for projects. We look to commence that after Thanksgiving, and then hopefully have the due date before February 1st. We need a draft, a TIP, or Transportation Improvement Program to NDOT by mid-February. So again, kind of under the gun to get this accomplished. Now, as for the revisions, when we first put this out back in September, we had lots of programs, we had lots of project types, we had lots of funding opportunities as well. We heard very carefully from our topical committees, and they brought some great ideas to the forefront and some suggestions on revisions. From the revisions that we heard and from the feedback, we have taken the programs from 19 down to 13. The project types that are further described and have been combined when they are redundant. The committee assignments of project types have been reassigned based on feedback, meaning that some of our topical committees will be looking at more projects than they were first allocated based, again, on the feedback we received. And then we went through all of the funding categories that we here are attributable to, and we reviewed their eligibility and revised those accordingly. Okay, so the recommended programs are now spread across the 5 topical committees for initial review and feedback. And here are all the 13 programs that are categorized under each of those topical committees. So over the last month, we've been having a very strong exercise in going through each of these programs and all the project types under these programs and find out how they match up based on our plan. And I'll get to that, how that works. So, trying to break it down in its most rudimentary sense, what this means. There are 2 major parts to it. The first one is the project type score. And there are 3 elements that we talk about there. We have the critical paths, the potential futures, and the project type difficulty. I'll unpack those in a moment. Part 2 of our scoring involves the actual program score itself. So we have project types, and those are broad categories. Of course, in my world, trails is a project type, but you're going to have a lot of trail projects come in. So we have to make sure we're able to make a difference between those different trail projects, and hence part 2, the program score. And that's where we have primary and specific criteria that helps kind of break out apples to apples, so to speak. Now, when you combine all this together, we're able to place these projects into our transportation improvement program and make sure we can allocate the proper funding to those types of projects. Okay, so talking about part 1, this is the project type evaluations. And this is going to come in 3 major steps leading to the 4th and final. So the first steps in how we review all these project types is the impact on the critical paths. That is the largest factor in the scoring, 80%. And this is where we evaluate the project type's impact on critical paths. We consider direct and indirect benefits. So we're taking these critical paths and then we're putting them to each of the project types. We look at it as a group and we find out, does that particular project type have a high or medium or low impact on those critical paths? And again, I'll break those critical paths out momentarily. Step 2 to this process, this is where we find out the project type and the impact that it has on our 3 future scenarios. And again, we consider those direct and indirect benefits, and again, we assign those impact scores. And the third part is project difficulty, okay? And here we examine 6 major factors of difficulty that are pretty much common throughout many of our projects that we have. Not all projects are created equal, not all projects are built equally. So we have to make sure we factor that into our final score. And then that will equal your final 100%. And this is where we have our program evaluation score and our project types actually identified there. Okay. Now, just so you know, as we get into the this breakdown here, the color-coded breakdown that you have a copy of, We had an average staff score of 50. We took the time to go through this ourselves. Of course, we did it based on the experience of a staff member to that topic area, myself with trails, Scott Weber with roads, James Winters with transit, and Kathy with the environment, and we had Iman with our land use. And they went through their committees eventually, and we were able to get a score out of that. But our average staff score is only 50. So as you can tell, it's kind of hard to get up there in the higher ends of it. And that's for purposeful sake here. So let's break down each of those steps. The first one is the impact on the critical paths. And here are the critical paths. Again, it's on the wall there by the clock. Again, this represents the real foundation of our 2050 plan. What you have across the top of our visions, we are carrying these visions from our 2040 plan. We're now assigning them different focus areas, and those focus areas are again 4 in number: economy and place, environment, mobility, and people and leaders. And what you end up are these 16 different critical paths. So we take those project types and we put them through all of these, and we evaluate them based on that. We find out what is a particular project's impact to each of these squares on these critical paths. Again, we assign it based on, is there a high impact to it, a medium, or there is no impact or no nexus, no connection at all. And we go through that one by one. As you can imagine, you're going through each of these with each of the projects. So things take time. And again, we really appreciate the effort and the perseverance of each of the topical committees as we made it through these different exercises. So that's step 1. Now step 2 talks about how that particular project type has an impact on our 3 future scenarios. The first future scenario we talk about is new chances for a new frontier. What this means is a future shaped by rapid technological change and our abundant source of fresh water. In this future, our region population grows rapidly and the economy is driven by tech changes. New solutions are required for new times. So you can imagine this future as pretty much your high-tech future. Okay, your automated cars, everyone has an Uber app, everyone has a Lyft app, there are windmills everywhere, there's all sorts of different technology being applied to a rapidly growing region. Okay, so that's our first frontier. The next type of scenario includes sharp and in focus. Now, sharp and in focus is really taking our 2040 measures and how that's going to apply for the next 30 years. This is a future influenced by tech change, but at a pace that allows our region to adapt and grow with that change. In this future, our region population grows, but not quickly enough to escape the issue of the aging population and our environment is healthy. For many people, this is our preferred future, okay? So you kind of have 2 of these types of futures that do require some strong planning emphasis with a high-tech future, with a smart growth future, such as sharpen and focus. The third is more or less your status quo that we're calling stay in your lane. Stay in your lane is a future that resembles the region as we know it today. Growth is slow. Connection to Chicago remains important. The economy and industry is still key. In this future, the region's population stays steady, but is at risk due to the aging population, and the balance between the environment and growth remains an issue. An issue. So, with all that said, we have these 3 scenarios, and so we take the project types and we measure them against these. The third type of measurement is the project difficulty. As I mentioned to you earlier, we have 6 of them. We measure these 6. How we rank them accordingly is if a project type maybe has a low difficulty, it has none of those factors, is medium, it has 1 or more, 1 factor, it is a high difficulty level if it has 1 or more of those factors. And here are those are the 6 that we identified as your common obstacle culprits in any type of project development. And for those in engineering and those who deal with project development, they're too familiar. Okay? And so when we talk about a project type, we look at these. If they have more than 1 of these difficulty factors, they get a high. And as you can imagine, as we're ranking them, if you rank the high, you get 0 points. Where if you're low, you get 8 points, or you get the most points. So you kind of go in reverse, so to speak. We want to see projects that do not have a lot of difficulty built into them. So those are a good measure going forward, and you can almost call that a project readiness measure as well. So, take it all together, what you have is what you have before you, and I'm going to walk through it real quick. It's this large placemat, colorful placemat, and to be careful with how I go about this, I'm going to go from left to right and describe how we went about this with all the topical committees for your information. On the very left-hand side, you see the topical committee that has been assigned to work on these specific programs and project types. The second column from the left are the program categories, okay? So the program categories are your family of like projects, and we have broken them down, as you see here, in all these different types of programs. We have multi-use path. There's pretty much only one project type under multi-use path, but if you look at complete streets, you can see all these types of projects, and you can keep going down the list. Roadway improvement is probably our most robust program. There are well over a dozen different project types under roadway improvement alone. So we want to make sure, and when we went through this, we wanted to see all of the projects that are eligible for the money that we grant to our communities. And that's what you see under project type. But we wanted to make sure we got them under a category so we could rank them, again, apples to apples, so to speak, as we get into that scoring criteria. Now, you see the program category, you see your project type, and then we describe the project type just in case there is some clarity necessary, and then we get into all of the rankings, and that's where you have the color code here. And as you can see, the very first 4 columns are broken into divisions. On the vertical, those are the focus areas. And again, we went one by one through each of these project types, through each of these boxes. So every box had some eyes on it, save for the transit operators, and we still have to work through them next week. So we still have one more group to work through. And then you get to the investment impact on the future scenarios. And you see how that measures here. And then the investment difficulty factor, which leads to your final impact score. Okay? That blue box that says final impact score, you're going to see that in 3 different colors here. You're going to see green as those that represent the highest scores on the scale, and your yellows and oranges in the middle, and your pinks and reds, kind of comes up as pink here, but should be more red. Those are your lowest scores, okay, that come out of this exercise. Now, everything you see to the right-hand side, those are all the funds that we deal with here at NERC. And so we are giving all of you, as stakeholders to our process, really the first vision at one glance of all the projects that are eligible and all the funding that is available for those projects. We have not done that before. So this is a really strong exercise in figuring out what we do here. And you can see we have a lot to juggle, okay? There's a lot of eligibility going on here, but we also have specific planning objectives that we want to measure and stay with. And so this has been a strong exercise in bringing together our critical paths to our project. Okay, so as for the math, I'm just going to leave this slide right here and not get into it in any detail. You have a large printout of it on your page. We have had people ask us, what does this mean? What are the weights? And this is how that breaks down. If you need any more details on the actual formula that we used in our Excel file, please come and talk to myself or Trey. We're more than happy to break that down, but that's how it works out. The one thing I will point out here are the mobility scores over there on the first range, the critical path evaluations. We take the mobility scores and we add them twice because we have figured that out of all the focus areas, mobility does rank the highest for what we are looking to accomplish, especially with the funds being transportation focused. Okay? So again, all that equals the score to the very right-hand side. Now, moving on from there, that's your project types. Okay, so that's what you have here before you. We are working on the project types. All these project types eventually will help us find a home for all the funds. But then we have projects that come in under these programs and we have to measure those against each other. Again, the apples to apples evaluation, that is part 2 of program evaluations. Now, we're going to do this under 2 sets of criteria. All the programs that I have mentioned have 9 overall criteria that are universal amongst all programs. And I'll bring them up here separately with access and connections. Then we have environment and economic generation. Then we get to environmental benefits, local policy and plan support, regional policy and plan support, partnerships, project readiness, safety, and the final one being social equity. Now, when they're all added up, all of these different criteria, you'll have your 100 points for that specific program. So again, these are the overall program categories for the criteria. They apply to every program that you see here on the sheet. However, each program is going to have their own specific criteria. So we just keep cutting that onion thinner, all right? So everything on the top of this sheet, now this is just a sample. I'm taking this from the 3PC group, the Ped, Pedal, and Paddle group. So everything you see along the top there, those are your 9 areas of overall criteria that I just mentioned to you. But as you can see, the programs that are on the left-hand side, we have to slice those down because complete streets and multi-use paths, they're going to have different areas of focus. They're going to have different measurements, okay? So not all complete streets projects are going to measure up to trail projects. And then if you want to get into a broader analysis, a complete streets project is not going to match a transit project, and so on and so on and so on. So we will make sure that we have that equity in review. And this is how we're going about it. So the specific criteria are mentioned all the way across, and again, when you add it all the way across the horizontal line, you get to that 100-point max score. So as you can see here, as an example, and we're still working through this with the topical committees, by the way, each of those boxes, bless you. Each of those boxes have a weight, a final point valuation. As you can see, I'll just take an example here, access and connections under complete streets, that very first box there up to the upper left, 25 points. So you see all the specific criteria above it. Those specific criteria are going to be assigned a numerical value, and we're going to be able to measure that objectively to assign a point, and eventually you might get 25 points, you might not, out of that particular box. And then you add it all the way through, and there's your 100 points. So at this time, we're at the moment of working through what these, bless you, we're working through these final criteria, and we're also looking to assign the scores to those specific criteria. So again, that's another session that's going to be about as robust and as involved as we already have been through last month, so get ready, George. So we hope to have some good feedback on that and finally assign these points accordingly. But what's important about this, the specific criteria is that it has to be measurable. It has to be measurable. So let me try my best to get you back to center here about where we're going. And again, how we're actually going to fund these programs going ahead. Let me first bring you back to where we are in the process. Identify all eligible types for federal funding. We have completed that. That's on your sheet here. Then we categorize the project types into those programs and identify the eligible funding sources. We have completed that process. Then we evaluate the project types for the impact of the vision goals, and that is the feedback that is ongoing, although we are very close to getting that tidied up. Then we're going to base on the impact evaluation, and we'll group projects into 3 major tiers. And we're going to be doing that over the next few weeks, and then next month, possibly later, but next month, get this finalized. And then rank the project types and assign the funding available to the highest tiered projects. Again, this is a future step. Now, if you look at your colored placemat here, an example I just want to show you is how it would match up to when things finally break down. So you have different project types. Okay, and as you can see here, all these project types have different color codes when you get to the final impact score. And it's going to match up here. We're going to have 3 major tiers, and we're going to find out where that cutoff is. We're still in the process of figuring that out too. We don't know what score is going to be a cutoff between a 1 and a 2 and a 3 tier, but this is how it's going to play out. So as you can see here, in a specific program, let's just say complete streets, okay? So under the program of complete streets, you can see it has a project type in the first tier, project type in the second tier, and finally in the very last box there, a project type in the 3rd tier. Okay? That means that's the priority of where that project will be funded, and of course the funds will be distributed accordingly. And we have to go through an exercise still, and we're going to be working with you, we're going to be working with the topical committees in detail about assigning that particular funding. And it could be STBG money we assign there, it could be CMAQ money. Again, if the program is complete streets, we do have different funding categories we can assign to that accordingly. And also keep in mind, we're putting all the money out at one time. So we can actually pick and choose these different funding programs as we go through this. And this is an exercise that staff is perfecting at this moment, and we're hoping to get that out for review and feedback within the next couple of weeks. Okay, so our heavy lifting at this point has just been assigning the scores, getting these criteria up, as you can imagine. And now we're getting into the actual funding assignments, okay? So that's how that would break down based on where the funding would go. And again, as I go back to that sheet, there are how the colors work out into the final scheme of the tiers. Now, again, going back to the final framework of where we're at, again, we're looking at project selection in November and January to commence late next month into January. And here are the next steps going forward from here. So we want to complete all the evaluation with the topical committees. Okay, we're very close to doing that. Then the staff is going to refine the program scoring and present the committees in November for TPC approval. The TPC right now is scheduled to meet on November 13th. We might move that up or back, it depends, but we have to have that meeting after all the other topical committees. The 5 committees I already mentioned take a look at these scores. Then we're going to allocate the funding based on the project type scoring, and we'll have that scheduled tentatively for TPC November approval, and that'll come before all of you in November for your final blessing before we have the solicitation after Thanksgiving. I know that was kind of drinking from a fire hose, I understand that. There's a lot going on here, and I understand. So I'll be more than happy to take any questions that all of you have, and hopefully I was somewhat clear with where we're at in this new process.
I think this comes as close as we have in a long time to equity, priority, and successful delivery of these projects. These formula, this concept can be used within your own communities to help you figure out what your best suited needs are, how successful we can be. Make sure we spend the money on a timely basis. There's a lot more pressure from the Fed, and we're also looking at fewer dollars, I think, right now. But we've got a budget. We've got to be very careful.
And by the way, we haven't had a broad solicitation here since 2014. It's been several years. And we're hoping to make this more regular, maybe every year, maybe every other year. But once we get through this first process, we will, of course, keep all processes open for tinkering and review and some type of modification going forward. But it is a big change, and obviously it's going to take some time for us. But again, as you were mentioning, I'm very happy about what we are going at this time. Yes.
Yeah, I just had a comment. I'm on the Environmental Planning Committee, and we have spent, I think, about 5 hours on this so far, under the direction of Kathy Luther and Mitch guiding us through. And it was a really interesting process for me because I'm kind of new with NERC, and I'll tell you, by the end of that process, those critical paths are so ingrained. You totally get it. And
That's
for
exactly
that
what
reason,
we're trying to accomplish.
and you do. And so for that reason alone, I think it was just a really valuable process. And I think all of us on our committee really understand how this process works. And at the end, when the projects are assigned and granted, we'll all understand why and where we're going.
Fantastic, thank you. Yes, Jim?
I'd just like to commend everybody involved in this because you have heartily involved the internal controls aspects of this process. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions? Well, when you finally wake up in the middle of the night with one, please feel free to contact me, and I thank you for your attention.
To reiterate what Jim said, we really appreciate everybody's participation and contributions to this. And this is ongoing. It's a work in progress, and it's what we call a living document.
Right.
It's very adaptable. And that's what's the nice thing about what we're delivering right now. There are 3 actions for consideration today. The first action is Resolution 1817, an amendment to Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Performance Plan, and that's found on pages 14 to 15. Scott Weber will explain this action. The Technical Planning Committee recommends adoption of Resolution 1817. Please, Scott.
Resolution 1817 on pages 14 and 15 of your packets describes amendment number 1 to the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Plan that we adopted at our September 20th meeting. This amendment is necessary because of a misinterpretation of the federal requirements of the term 2-year and 4-year target, what they were referring to. So in accordance with that, we have to make this amendment to slightly adjust the targets as you see on page 15 in the tables. Those explain the adjustments that are made, the old targets and the amended targets. And these apply for the traffic congestion measures, the peak hours of excessive delay per capita, and the percent non-single occupancy vehicle travel measures. This is consistent with what the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning described at its committee meetings last month, and so we ask for approval of these.
Move to approve resolution 1817.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Now we can go to conformity. The second action is Resolution 1818, the Transit Asset Management Route Plan for Small Transit Providers, which can be found on pages 16 to 34. James Winter will explain this action.
Hello. This is what's called a Transit Asset Management Plan, which is essentially a plan that helps transit operators determine which vehicles they're going to replace when it comes to replacing the vehicles in their fleet. Because we have so many small providers, we're able to do what's called a group plan, which is what this is before you. So this plan encompasses the rules for how all of NERC's sub-recipients will replace their transit vehicles. You will notice on page 2 of the plan, but on page 18 of your handout, we have provided a supplemental page. That's because at TPC last week, we got a pretty good recommendation. So there's a loose leaf page somewhere in your places that indicates the changes made. And all of those changes is just indicating one executive accountable for implementing the plan and making sure that condition assessments are being made and those kinds of things. So that was the only change. It was a good one. And so we didn't get to update the plan before the packet went out. That's why there's a supplemental page right now.
I would like to say, if you want to continue? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please.
I just wanted to say that this topic came up today in Finance and Personnel regarding vehicle replacement, when, where, and how. So I think this is very apropos. Thank you.
Sure. This plan, essentially what it does in terms of vehicle replacements is first it prioritizes the age of the vehicle, then the mileage, and then what we're calling the condition assessment, which is just a rating of 10 systems on the vehicle on a 1 to 10 scale, indicating how well the vehicle is performing.
It's more objective than subjective.
Right. It also sets out some programmatic rules to make sure that we aren't queuing vehicles for replacement before they're eligible, which is going to help streamline our procurement process. So I wanted to give a quick call out to Lisa Todd, our procurement officer, who was very instrumental in putting this together. So this was a group effort between her, myself, and then the transit operators themselves.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 1818.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I'm glad to hear that because the technical planning committee recommended adoption.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great.
A 30-day comment period on Amendment 17 to the fiscal year 2018-2021 Transportation Improvement Program was held from August 30th through September 30th. No comments were received. The report can be found on page 35. Charles, do you have any further input on that particular comment period? No, I don't. Then we'll go to the final action. This is on 1814, Resolution 1814. Amendment 17 to the fiscal year 2018-2021 Transportation Improvement Program, which can be found on pages 36 to 40. And Charles will explain this action.
This is amendment to the TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. Resolution 1814, amendment number 17. We have on page 38 is all of the actions for the city of Gary to move their project from what they had. This is part of the action that City Commission took a couple months ago. And then moving on, we have various projects for NDOT, DNR, Hammond, so on and so forth.
The technical planning committee recommends adoption of 1814. Is there any question?
Yeah, I have a question. How come on the Hammond project in Chicago Street, there's no federal money assigned to that? Is there any reason for that?
This is just the amendment.
So there's already money programmed there?
Yes,
Okay. This is just adding more to it?
yes it is.
Okay.
This PE phase, this demo phase, was not included in the TIP. So this is,
So there's already.
this is adding the PE and the,
Thank you.
okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great.
The next technical planning committee meeting will be November 13th, 2018 at 9 a.m. at Thursday.
One more item I'd like to mention before I take off. The new RTIP, the regional TIP, is just gone online today, or actually yesterday evening. So if anyone wants to see the TIP online, you're more than welcome to go to https://rtip.nerpc.org. All the consultants and the ERCs that I've worked with are really excited about this as well as I am. This is really helps the transparency, see projects that are going on in your area, in your interest, what have you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is the report. Thank you. Next, when's your next meeting?
That'll be November 13th. We've got some other meetings that we need to do before we have a meeting, and the 6th, our normal meeting date, is election day.
Vote. Everybody vote. Next is the report of the Indiana Department of Transportation. Amy Stanley, you're sitting in for rec.
So recently, we just held a bunch of job fairs where we were looking for seasonal snowplow drivers. Those were not very fruitful, and so we are still looking for some more seasonal snowplow drivers to join our crews. The pay is $16 an hour, and we are asking that you inform your communities of that to see if there's any interest. We've also been moving towards winter prep. It's that time of year. Our maintenance crews are looking at our fleet and making and having communication procedures to ensure that we're ready for when the snow comes. And we are getting ready for our snow and ice training refresher courses for all of our technicians and drivers. Those will be underway in the coming weeks.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Amy?
Yes, how much did you say now?
$16 an hour.
1/6.
1/6.
Thank you.
Well, for the record, that seems kind of low. I'm just making a point for the record.
Well, it's 38 cents a
And
month.
maybe that's why you're having a hard time trying to find it.
Yeah, I'm not sure offhand what our regular full-time people start in at, but it is right around that.
That's right. It comes with benefits?
That is not coming with benefits.
No wonder we have to do that driver.
That's great. Is this your first meeting that you've attended, Amy, or you were here before?
I've been here.
Yeah, I thought so. Welcome to the table. Next, other commission business?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to talk to everybody here about something that's been going on in Hammond. I'm sure it's not just our community that's affected by it. It's about a month ago, the Indiana Supreme Court came out with a preemption decision that had to do with railroads and local ordinances or state statutes that allowed for municipalities to ticket railroads when they stop and block intersections for more than 10 minutes. The Indiana Supreme Court, I'm not I'm not criticizing any of the Supreme Court, I understand legally what they did, you know, because I'm an attorney and I can get in trouble for criticizing the Supreme Court. But the Indiana Supreme Court ruled that preemption precludes local cities and states from ticketing trains at block crossings for greater than 10 minutes, all right? Now, Hammond had had an ordinance on the book for decades and written tens of thousands of ordinances for trains that belligerently and arrogantly block our crossings for more than 10 minutes, sometimes for hours. Last night this came to a head. I mean, I think since personally my observation as Mayor Hammond, I think it's gotten worse since the Indiana Supreme Court handed down this decision, okay? And last night, I took the opportunity because 2 of our crossings right by an elementary school were blocked for over 2 hours. Just blatantly, arrogantly blocking crossings. So I got out of my car and I took a selfie in front of a stop train. Thought it was funny. It took off, but it just sort of hit home for me. I mean, somebody needs to do something about this. And this is one of the most common complaints I get as mayor, and there's nothing I can do about it now. And quite frankly, I don't hear anybody from the federal government talking about it. And we're the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Northwest Indiana. This is not a Hammond problem. I guarantee Maricopa will give you, I guarantee Griffith. Thank you. Why can't we do something about it? Why don't we take the lead and facilitate these thousands and thousands of residents' complaints that I get and that we all get every year, and we'll facilitate these complaints getting filed with the Surface Transportation Board. We'll actually try to do something. I'm not being critical of Dixie, but somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to do something. If it's not us, we're talking about planning, we're talking about past, let's talk about stuff that affects everybody. And this is ridiculous. It's arrogant. It's past time that somebody steps up and does something. I can't do it as Mayor Hammond, but I think we could do something. I think our congressmen could do something. I think our senators could do something. It's time. It's time. So I just wanted to start off. We're the Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm willing to help in any way, shape, or form. I think we should do something. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I want to add to the mayor's comments because I've been dealing with this for several years. And I'm not going to get into details because I can, but you're having a problem with traffic being stopped. We have a major problem with railroads not even allowing bike and peds to cross at street crossings. They're now saying that it's too dangerous and they have to have bridges or they just don't allow it at all. And bridges are phenomenally expensive investments and these are public right-of-ways. And there has to be some type of precedence at a public right-of-way where, as you say, the interest of the public, I mean, this is a private rail corridor. I know it's a national corridor and all, but they can't be holding, like you say, communities hostage, not only with the roadways, but also with trail development and just simple sidewalk development. So I'm actually looking to work with Rail to Trails Conservancy and other national organizations that hear this nationwide, just from the trail perspective, but be more than happy to expand it to just a whole roadway precedent as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I believe that the state Supreme Court didn't make a mistake. I'm not an attorney. As in our county, in Porter County, I know it's you know, we're not alone in that. We've experienced several road crossings at the same time. Terrible communication with school districts and with you know, county government, our highway department. And in, you know, what we've seen is beginning to affect our public safety response times. And that's a very, very dangerous road that, you know, no pun intended, to go down.
So, if this is right by an elementary school, and how do the kids get home?
I'll tell you, they get home late. Well, it's right by a middle school in Hammond, Scott Middle School. And what you're supposed to do as a parent is drive literally probably a 3-mile detour to go all the way around and drop your kids off at a school you can see, but there's a stop train in front of you. And I hate to say this, but what happens, unfortunately and dangerously, is these bad parents are letting their kids go across the stop train. And it's happening. It's happening today. It's going to happen tomorrow. There's nothing you can do about it. Because the trains aren't listening. I guess we could arrest parents for being bad parents, but this is a public safety issue. This is an economic development issue. We're trying to rebuild our cities, and they don't care. They don't care. They get out of the train and they go get a sandwich. And they're blocking 2 intersections, 3 intersections, and they don't care. And this Supreme Court case made it worse, in my opinion.
I agree. Well, if they're on the bus, they're going to sit on the bus for another half hour, an hour. So that's what ours wanted to do.
Actually. So, Mr. Chairman, Ty, I think that we should think about what we can do as a metropolitan planning organization, and I will do anything I can to help you. I think we should do something about this, and I'm willing to help, so I just wanted to say that.
We will definitely.
I support the mayor's concern.
I do also, as well.
Thank you. Excellent. So, the question for you is, do you want to make a motion to make a task force to look into what we
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that NERC form a task force to look into ways that we can alleviate the problem experienced by so many communities that are sitting around this table right now. This isn't a Hampton problem, this is a Northwest Indiana problem. That's arrogance from the railroads. So
I'll second
it.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I would be interested to see what other planning organizations throughout the state are experiencing.
We can definitely do that. In fact, we can national.
We can do something national.
Perfect.
I concur, it has gotten worse, in my opinion, it has gotten worse.
Okay, so,
I want to make it clear, I didn't criticize the Indiana Supreme Court. Crystal clear.
I don't know.
A lot of people were, but I was not. It was Bronx, it wasn't.
Let the record show.
Get in line.
not freedom of speech, but anyway, that's okay. It's been moved, seconded, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Any other commission business? Announcements?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to make it clear to the commission that NERC will be hosting a Complete Streets workshop on Friday, December 7th here in this room. We're really pushing hard to have as many municipalities in this room as possible because it is a policy creation workshop. We are aiming to have you, your community, walk out of the room with a draft policy for your executive body to consider. Complete Streets policies are extremely important to ensure that all intended users of a roadway corridor are accommodated. We have two that are in effect, to my knowledge, La Crosse and Lowell. And so we thank those communities, but we need more communities on board. And as we go through our criteria with ranking projects, it will also help you in that regard too. So again, that's Friday, December 7th. We did send out a reminder and we'll be doing that yet again. Thank you. It's an all-day affair, probably from 9 to 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, any announcements?
Yes. This Saturday at the Cedar Lake Town Grounds, 7408 Constitution Avenue, from 10 to 1 p.m., we will be having a trunk or treat. And people will get goodie bags and they go up to the main desk and they can file to be in a raffle to receive 4 general admission tickets to the Field Museum and the Shedd Aquarium. And our new clerk treasurer, because our old one resigned, and Jennifer Sandberg was the deputy, and she has run this thing year after year, and she's continuing to run it this year. She's doing a super job. She didn't hire anybody to replace her, so she's doing 2 jobs, which I'm very proud of her.
Great.
And also on November the 10th, we will have our Gene Everly Parade of Lights that will take off from London Lake Park and end up at the Hanover High School. And we are also having our Wonderland of Trees, where we put up 135 trees all around town. And we've already got 70 of them purchased, so time's running out. Businesses and families have signs in memory of either their loved ones or a business.
Great. Any other?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I wanted to announce that NERC will be holding their vehicle disposition sale. We have 9 VOC minibuses that are, actually I take it back, there's 7 minibuses and 2 15-passenger vans that will be on this round. The sale and the viewing will actually take place on Tuesday, November 6th between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. in NERC's parking lot. So anybody that wants to come look at the vehicles can do so. And they can also come from 9 through noon on Wednesday, November 11th, 7th, I got that wrong again. 7-Eleven, I'm struggling here. So the sale is on Wednesday, November 7th. Sealed bids will be opened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in the Dune Room. And so if the winners will be announced at that time once we open the bids. But starting next Monday, this coming Monday, the bid packets will be on NERC's website along with instructions and pictures and information on all of those vehicles. So if anybody's interested.
Mr. Chairman, there is an emergency travel survey circulating in our communities. Encourage people to go ahead and participate. They just have to put all their travel log for a day, I think, into a diary, but we appreciate that effort too. Additionally, I think NERC is hosting a pop-up event at Central Park Friday. Can staff comment on that?
Yeah, I'm getting a head nod, so I don't have the scheduled meeting available. Scott?
Yes, you are correct that the travel survey is very important for as well. It's also a $20 incentive, so if you get any comments about that, remind your constituents about that. Also, for our pop-up event this Friday, we're going to be at the Harvest Festival in Valparaiso. We will be under the Ursural Pavilion. We also have an additional pop-up event on Saturday morning in Michigan City at the Farmers Market.
Go ahead. I'd like to make a quick announcement. This spring, the Chesterton Town Council became acutely aware of the need to provide a rescue system for unwanted, unplanned, or abandoned infants. Subsequently, after due deliberation and research, the council voted unanimously to contract with Safe Haven Baby Boxes Incorporated for such a system. Any questions regarding the manufacture, production, technical characteristics, or nature of this specific operation should be referred to Safe Haven Baby Boxes Incorporated. This is a question that has come to me since our friends in the press have been so thorough about making this action known. We have received questions regarding the specifics of details of the manufacture and operation of the box that we, as council members, cannot answer. So if there are any, and I have had several municipalities contact me and see about the possibility of doing the same type of thing in their municipality. So we can answer why we did what we did and what we're doing and what the purpose is, but the specifics of it would have to be referred to the company that produces the boxes. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate our friends in the press at making that known. There is a specific need. We were made acutely aware of it in our community, and feel that this will, it's a sanctity of life issue that I couldn't get into, but I'll get a motion. So we'll leave it go at that. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Todd? Mr. Todd, don't you have an unveiling plan for that also?
We do tentatively, but I wouldn't be ready to give the date of that yet. There are some alarm company details that have to be worked out. And that's not coming together right as quickly as we thought it would. But we are hopeful for some time in November. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. The next meeting is right here, November 15th at 9 a.m. Hope to see you then, and I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
You got it.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Done.